Welcome to Bow Eminent Channel. The wind carried the scent of the Atlantic across the red cliffs of Mikmaq, the ancestral homeland of the Mikmaq people. Beneath the whispering pines, elders gathered around a small fire, their voices weaving the stories of Kuowaqejk, those who came before. These were not just tales of survival, but of deep connection to the land, the sea, and the spirits that shaped both. For generations, these stories were passed through spoken word, carried in the rhythm of the drum and the flicker of firelight. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel. Yet much of this history remained unseen, untouched by colonial records or Western interpretation. Long before the first European ships reached their shores, the Mikmaq had built a sophisticated society rooted in respect for nature and balance. They navigated the intricate river systems of Atlantic Canada, trading, teaching, and protecting the lands that sustained them. Their knowledge of the stars guided them through dense forests and vast waters, and their oral traditions preserved an understanding of life that modern science is only beginning to appreciate. But when colonization arrived, much of that wisdom was dismissed, buried under treaties misunderstood and promises broken. Young Mikmaq voices are reclaiming their language, reviving traditional ceremonies, and restoring ancient practices of fishing, crafting, and governance. Elders speak of a resurgence, a reweaving of the sacred fabric torn by time. Archaeologists and historians, guided by indigenous knowledge keepers, are uncovering ancient settlements and artifacts that tell a story of resilience rather than disappearance. In the heart of Nova Scotia, a new generation walks the same paths as their ancestors, guided by the teachings of Netakulam, living in harmony with the environment. The untold chapters of Mikmaq history are no longer silent, they are being sung, danced, and spoken back into being. Kuowaqejk is not just about the past, it is a call to honor the spirit of a people whose wisdom continues to shape the future. Would you like me to continue this into a multi-part story, like a short series following different Mikmaq generations or events? Or would you prefer I expand this one into a longer historical narrative, like a full article or book chapter? Kuowaqejk, the Echo of the Ancestors, Part 2. Morning mist curled over the rivers of Mikmaq as a young Mikmaq woman, stepped barefoot onto the dewy grass. The land felt alive beneath her, the same ground her great-grandmother once walked, where songs were sung to the dawn and the spirits of the ancestors listened from the wind. Aila was part of a growing movement among her people, one determined to rediscover what had been nearly erased. Her heart carried the weight of Kuowaqejk, the ancestors, and the hope of a generation rising to bring their stories back to life. Her journey began in a small community near Eskasoni, where elders still gathered by the fire to tell stories in the Mi'kmaq language. One elder, Grandmother Maji, spoke of times before the treaties, before the loss. She told Aila of the Clam Kwan, the ancient birchbark scrolls once used to record sacred teachings, many of which were hidden when missionaries tried to destroy them. "The land remembers," Maji would whisper. "Even when paper burns, the earth keeps the truth." As Aila listened, she realized the past wasn't something buried in history books. It lived in the rivers, in the songs, in the beating of the drum. She began collecting oral histories, traveling from one community to another, recording the voices of those who still carried fragments of forgotten stories. Each tale she heard painted a richer picture of the Mikmaq world, one of diplomacy, wisdom, and balance with nature. The Mikmaq were not a people discovered by explorers, they were navigators, scientists, and philosophers of their own world. One day, while exploring an old coastal site near Kuowaqejk, Aila found a carved stone half buried in the sand. The markings resembled ancient petroglyphs she'd seen in museums, symbols of the sun, waves, and canoes. Holding it in her hands, she felt an inexplicable connection, as if the voices of Kuowaqejk were speaking through time. She realized the stories she sought were not lost, they were waiting to be remembered. That night, as the northern lights shimmered over the horizon, Aila stood by the fire with her community. The drums began to echo, slow and steady, like the heartbeat of the land. "We are still here," she whispered. And so are they. In the days that followed her discovery, Aila couldn't shake the feeling that the stone she found was more than an artifact, it was a message. When she showed it to the elders, they gathered around in silence, tracing the grooves with reverent fingers. "These are old signs," Grandmother Maji said softly. "Older than memory, older than the treaties. They belong to Kuowaqejk." The stone was placed on the altar of the community lodge, beside cedar branches and a bowl of river water, symbols of purification and truth. That night, Aila dreamed of the sea. She saw canoes gliding across silver waves, their paddles moving in perfect rhythm. Men and women wore woven cloaks of reeds, their faces painted with ochre, their songs rising like mist into the dawn. She could feel their laughter, their unity, a people in harmony with the tides and the land. Then she saw smoke on the horizon, the shape of foreign ships cutting through the fog. The song faltered, the dream dissolved into silence. When she awoke, the morning light felt heavy with meaning. She began to search for records of early Mikmaq settlements, working with historians and archaeologists who respected indigenous knowledge. Together, they unearthed tools, pottery, and carvings that spoke of a thriving civilization. Yet Aila knew that the truest stories were not in museums, they were in the people. Each time she visited a new community, she was greeted with pride, curiosity, and sometimes tears. "You are doing the work of the ancestors," one old man told her. "They've been waiting for someone to listen." As her research gained attention, journalists and scholars came to Mikmaq eager to write about the rediscovery. But Aila was careful. "This isn't about finding something lost," she told them. "It's about hearing what was silenced." She began to teach workshops on Mikmaq language and storytelling, helping children learn the ancient words their grandparents once feared to speak. When they sang together in Mikmaq, the sound felt like the heartbeat of the land itself, steady, powerful, alive. One evening, as the sun sank behind the forest, Aila stood at the same shoreline where she had found the carved stone. She placed it gently back into the earth. "You've done your part," she whispered. "Now it's our turn." The waves lapped against the shore, and for a brief moment, she thought she heard the faint rhythm of drums echoing beneath the sea. The voices of Kuowaqejk, still singing after all this time.